Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. And with me today, I've got Wendy Lipton-Dibner. And what we're going to be doing is talking about her new book, What Matters Most. This is it here. How leaders can build impassioned engagement, unrivaled loyalty, and boundless growth by measuring real-world impact. So, Wendy, where can people find you?
The best place is professionalimpact.com. You can get everything you need to know there, including about the book. And Tim, happy 9th anniversary.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me with you today.
Thank you. And so what inspired you to write the book? Because it's a book about impact, isn't it? Everyone
Absolutely.
talks about it, but very few people seem to be able to do anything or measure it. So what inspired you about the book?
Well, as you well know, I've been involved in helping people measure their impact for 40 years. It began at the United States Senate when I was working as a manager of a research institute, and I was working on a specific project that the United States Senate was interested in. So when we delivered the report, I sat in front of all the senators. I told them everything they needed to know. They asked a lot of questions. I was the only woman in the room. It was a little scary, but at the time it was very exciting. I was just a kid. And at the end of it all, when we left, the Senate decided to make a decision that has since helped millions of people. So it was a very successful moment. But I was actually quite distressed because as I was on the plane, I realized, wait a minute, the questions they asked were all about money. We had done a study to see if a certain hospital had made a major difference by helping people get past alcoholism and live a good life. They didn't care about the people. They cared about the money. How much did it cost? How much were this? Okay. And it suddenly hit me, is this what business is all about? Is it really all about the money? I went back to the university. I quit my job, walked into a bank and asked them to give me a loan so that I could build a business and use it as a social laboratory to prove that we could make more money if we focused on impact instead of on money. Now, today, people talk about impact all the time.
Yep.
Back then, here I was, this woman just wanting to do something soft, feely, touchy, right? But the banker was smart. And he said, I think this is brilliant. Let's go for it. And the inspiration that he gave me to believe in this possibility was all I needed. That, and of course, his check. So we opened a new business. I knew nothing about actually running a company. I knew how to evaluate organizations, but I didn't know how to do a company. Long story short, there were no prices in the shop. No one was allowed to talk about money in the shop. My employees had never had a job in business, so they weren't pre-trained, if you will. And the long and short of the story is we broke all industry records at the time for revenue, and everyone related to the concept of coming there to make a difference in their lives as opposed to just buying stuff. Since then, I've been doing testing and working with organizations for years to help them make more money as the result of making a measurable difference in people's lives, speaking, writing books. And then all of a sudden, about a year and a half ago, I was in bed at 2:00 in the morning having trouble sleeping. So I did what every red-blooded entrepreneur would do. I took my phone under the covers and scrolled the socials, because what do you do when you can't sleep? And there it was. There it was, Tim. It was hundreds upon hundreds of posts talking about how much these people hated their jobs, hated their bosses, hated commuting, hated their life. It was quite at the end of lockdown. And of course, everybody just still wanted to stay home. They didn't want to go back to their offices. They just hated their work. And suddenly I saw a post where someone said, if I just knew that what I was doing really made a difference, really mattered, really made an impact, I'd be okay with everything else. And all of a sudden it blew up and everybody started talking about this. And that was it. I mean, I know how to measure impact. The question was, how could we help the employees understand and see and have proof that what they do really matters? So the idea was born. The next day, I walked into someone's office and I said, look, I have this idea. I'd like to know what you think about it. And he just raised his hand and he said, can I be first? And that's how it started. The challenge that we faced, Tim, as you well know, is that I could not see myself doing this in seminar format. The life has changed. Going into a company and saying, I want you to take all your people and join me in a retreat for 3 days. Those days are over, in my opinion. There's too much work to be done and not enough staff to make it happen. So the trick was to figure out, could I help them do it without adding any work to their schedules? And the answer was yes, but of course that meant technology. And it meant writing a book that would enable people to read it and understand what it is we're talking about, which is not a difficult concept. And once you understand what you're measuring, the next question is, can you do it by pushing a button? And now we can. So the technology is built, the patent pending system technology and interface is ready to go. And the book is my joy. I mean, I've written 7 books and this is my absolute favorite. So I'm so excited we're talking about it today.
So it's a book that, let's go and talk about the book, because I think the book is something that I've not seen before. So for people watching, it's written as a novel. So it's not a, this is the framework and that as a business book. It's written, it is as a novel. And we talked, it's page 20 where I cried. It's a proper story. And the thing that you do, sorry, it's your interview, but I'm going to talk.
Please talk.
What you do is in the book is you take people through the process for impact. So there's lots of people, as we know, that talk about impact. Greenpeace and sustainability and the circular economy and stuff like that. And people say, I want to work in that environment. But nobody's actually measuring it. All it is words. I work in impact. Yeah. And what you've done is that ability to actually measure impact. And I've not seen this before. And what you do is you take people through a story, the novel, of how an organization implements it within the company. It's a non-for-profit dog company that takes, correct me if I'm, it's basically takes stray dogs and then rehouses them, and it takes you through the different characters within that, and for me it was a story that it sucked me in. As I say, page 20, I'm in tears because that's the way that the story works. But for anybody that's working in any charity, any non-for-profit or any organization where they're saying that they're making an impact, you've got to read this book because this is a method of measuring it. So you talk about real world impact and measuring that. Explain how you do it.
Absolutely, and thank you for your words. I'm truly touched and frankly delighted that you cried. And if you only cried once, then go back and read it again because there's more to cry.
Yeah, I was ready for some of the other stuff, and I had to keep putting it down. I think.
Okay, so let's talk about this. And you're absolutely right. I'd like to start with something you said, which is that people aren't measuring their impact. They think they are. And we need to give them credit for that. So in the nonprofit industry, for example, they're bringing clean water and they're counting the number of people that received that water as their impact. And they're saying, okay, this clean water really helped people and it will keep them safe. And that's awesome. And it's not like they're not following up. It's not like they're not going there to make sure people are using whatever they gave them, because of course they do. Corporations, healthcare institutions, they all measure impact based on how many people did we serve, did our interventions work, are people using our products? You know, these are the kinds of questions that people measure for impact. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the whole story. The fact is that every single thing that we give to people, whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, healthcare, trucking, every product and service, if the benefits that were planned are received by the users, the question becomes, what happens next? So if they receive your benefits, whatever that may be, and let's use you as an example, if I may, Tim, people watch your show.
Yeah.
They listen to your interviews. They get information. And in some way, shape, or form, it helps them. Maybe they'll listen to what you said and buy the book. Maybe they'll read the book. Maybe they'll use the book. Maybe they're just here for entertainment. Maybe they just love watching you talk. The question becomes, what happens next? Do they use the information that you give them to do anything different? And if they do, what happens after that? And just like the pebble in the pond, the ripples appear. So each product or service is in fact a pebble. And if we throw that pebble into someone's pond, ripples will occur. And each benefit that you planned on then creates some kind of change, difference, outcome, result, event, experience that we call real world impact. What happens in their life once they have gotten and used your product or service or benefit, and then something changed, and when that change occurred, what did that lead to? And what happened next? And what happened next? That is all measurable through the 5 components of real world impact.
Fantastic. So where do you see, you talk about impassioned engagement, to talk to us about that?
Yeah, so I'm very excited about this. Now that we know that we can provide proof to any organization or even an individual entrepreneur to show proof of the real world impact of their product or service, now that we know we can do that, and now that we've got the app, which actually measures it for you, then there is nothing to be done by them except once a week to have a 5-minute, what I call impact fest. In other words, we allow the organization, the people, to actually see metric proof of everything that happened to their customers or patients or beneficiaries during that week, because it was reported by those people. And when we see that report once a week, we get to vote. All right, what are your favorite impact ripples? What happened this week? What excites you? What makes you want to make that happen? What kind of things do you think we could innovate? Because now we know this is what people want, and we didn't even know they wanted it. This takes marketing research to a whole another level by actually finding out not only what happens, but what people report, because they report what meant something to them. It's not that other things don't occur, right?
I know that the novel is in the book is fiction. But in terms of that meeting, I can imagine that if you're discussing those things and this is the impact that we're making, surely that's motivational to people.
Absolutely.
Surely that's them wanting to say, and regardless of what you do, whether it's making rivets or whatever, if you say the impact is making that bridge, isn't that what people want to get up on Monday morning and say, I'm going to build a bridge, but you only work for a rivet company? Yeah, well, you don't know.
But what if you find out that because you worked on that bridge, someone got to the hospital in time and had a baby? Someone's life was saved. Someone had a chance to meet the love of their life just because they crossed that bridge. And you'll never know that. Now you can.
So how does I can imagine that if people watching this, that go, Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But this sounds all very fluffy and stuff like that. We got to make a profit and we got to grow and that. So how do you balance the growth, the profit, the impact?
So it depends on whether you're doing your research in analog or in digital. So to get techie and get into the weeds for just a quick second, the book is designed to enable people to do the research by hand.
Right.
The challenge is that it
Yeah.
takes an incredible amount of time to do it.
Mm.
And nobody has those resources at the corporate level. They should, but they don't. So the question is, if you do it in digital, then there's no work at all. So each week you get a report. Now, how do you use this report? Not only do you get to use it for motivation, you also get to use it for innovation. You use it in order to look at your research and development and see what you've been missing all these years. Look at it in terms of your sales conversations. What can you add into your sales conversation to not just say, this is the greatest widget ever made, but to say, let me tell you what Mary did with this widget. Let me tell you what Susan did with this ribbon. And it wasn't just making the bridge. It was what happened to their life because they used it. That won't happen with anyone else because we don't have the proof for that, but we do have the proof for this. The other piece of this, Tim, getting into the weeds just a touch more, in the technology piece, what we've done is entered a process where the users of the app are actually just playing a game.
Right.
And as they play the game, they begin to have more and more fun and having rewards, and they celebrate in-app by sending out snapshots of the game to their friends on social. Look at me, I'm on a journey of impact. Look what I'm doing, look what I'm playing, with no reference per se to the fact that it's them. It's just a picture, but of course the pictures are branded. So every picture that goes out is branded to the company who's doing the research. So the more that we help people prove that what they're using actually made a difference in their life, the more money the company makes. It's always been true. Before the book was ever written, or I wouldn't have written the book.
Yeah.
I've proved it over and over again. When you focus on impact, the money comes.
And I can see if you've got people that are motivated to get up on Monday morning and come to work, they're going to do what they need to do because ultimately it's not about the money, it's about the impact.
Yeah, and in fact, that's very true, especially today with the economic uncertainty that's going on. So people are watching what's happening, especially in the US, because we've had some changes in case you haven't noticed. And so politics aside, the economy keeps shifting and people are afraid to spend money right now. And so the question is, how do they make decisions about what to buy and who to buy it from? Now, if I have 4 different products to choose from, how am I going to do it? Am I going to do it because somebody said we give you better value, or am I going to do it because you showed me a bunch of 5 stars, or am I going to do it because you showed me real world concrete proof of what would happen after I buy it? Of course, I'm going to go with the proof every time.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So, how do we get started?
Well, you read the book.
Apart
That's the
from
first
buying your book, of course.
Right. You can also go to proveyouриmpact.com and learn about the app. Tim, you are the first person I'm actually announcing this with, so thank you for being here with me
Oh, wow.
at this moment.
Wow, exclusive.
Yes. So the site is now up. People can learn more about how to measure your impact, and more importantly, I think, why you should. And in that process, what ends up happening is people can really start to understand what's important about a product or service. I put up the app with the site with a lot of information because my hope is it won't just be people who, organizations who want to use the app. It'll be everyday consumers and patients who will say, well, what should I look for in a product or service? And it's all right there for you to be able to know not only that the product does what it says it's going to do, but that it made a difference for you, what kind of difference it made. Was the difference important, or was it significant, or was it life-changing? And was it really the product that made this change, or was it something else because you went out and bought a puppy? We have to be able to prove that. And my background in research, which at the time I hated and I just wanted to go sing on Broadway, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I can't even tell you how many letters I've been sending to Dukes to say, thank you, thank you, thank you for teaching me this, even though I didn't want to learn it. Because if I hadn't learned all of those very high power statistical formulas, none of this would have been possible.
And do you see leadership evolving because of this?
I hope so. I hope so. I think I've laid out the platform for it. And now the question becomes, will leaders take a moment to read the book? Will leaders take a moment to consider that there is an easier, faster way to not only motivate employees, but to select employees based on what they believe about what the products and services should do? There's a chapter in the book, as you well know, Tim, about how to hire people based on impact-driven people who will focus on making sure that products and services make a difference in the world. And again, Greenpeace, water, helping people live their lives, very important. Do not assume that the only people who can truly make an impact are the people who are in the nonprofit organizations. And please don't put impact in your mission statement unless you're really making a measurable impact in people's lives.
Wendy, thank you so much for the book, and thank you so much for coming on and talking about it. What matters most? What matters most. And it's a great book, and I love the novel format. It was great, and we're not going to talk about puppies because we don't want to give the story away. If I wanted to buy a copy of that, where can I get one from?
So, go to my website, professionalimpact.com. You'll see a pop-up that will lead you to the site for this. There's a bunch of choices of where you can buy it. The question is, should you buy it and should you read it? And that site will show you why.
And Wendy, where can we get more information of you?
Again, professionalimpact.com or LinkedIn or Twitter or X or Facebook. I'm everywhere.
Wendy, thank you so much for the book, and thank you for coming on. It's a I'm not going to say it's an impactful book because that's a terrible pun. It really, I mean, I was open-mouthed as I read it because it's just something I've just not seen before, and I think it's a, for anybody out there that wants to make an impact on the world, you've got to read it.
Thank you. I'm truly honored, Tim, and I'm so happy we finally